Hello everybody, Harry from GMAT Ninja here, and welcome to episode 12 in our comprehensive sentence correction series for the GMAT and the executive assessment. In this episode, I'm going to be talking to you about verb tenses. Now, the first thing to say is please don't go learning every possible verb tense in the English language. Depending on which search result you click on, there may be 12 tenses in English, there may be 16. I found one website trying to claim there were 24. And there's just no need to go into that much depth, as you can do perfectly well on GMAT sentence correction knowing about far fewer tenses than that. In particular, you don't need to go into the very rare cases like the subjunctive or the passive future perfect continuous, as they're just too rare for it to really be worth your time studying them in huge amounts of detail. And there's often going to be other decision points in those questions. So in today's video, we're going to focus on 3 tenses. Now, the GMAT can test you on more than 3, but when they do this, almost always all you need to do is just match the tenses to the logical sequence of the events in the sentence. You don't need to do anything technical. The only thing you should really worry about is the logic and the context of the sentence, and we'll see some examples of this a little later. All right. So I said we'd focus on 3 tenses. So we're just going to take a quick look at some examples of these and just look at how to identify these and what they mean in terms of when we're looking at them in sentence correction. So there are, as I said, 3 tenses that hopefully you can identify, you can recognize, and you can work with in a sentence correction question. Now, the first one of these is just the simple present tense. Example of this is just Jim surfs. Now, simple present tense is used to explain some sort of general state. This sentence does not necessarily mean that Jim is surfing right now. It could be. Or it could just mean that this is something he does. He does it every Tuesday afternoon. It's just part of his lifestyle. Now, again, there's nothing really we need to do with this. This is just here so that you can identify it. We can put it in context. We can use it in a sentence. And we can compare it against the next 2, which are the ones that we do a little bit more work with. The next one here is the present perfect tense. Now, the example of this is Jim has surfed since 1979. And this is an example, or this tense is used when you're trying to talk about something that started in the past and continues into the present. Now, the way you can identify this tense is that we've got this word here, has surfed. Has is used when there's a singular, and if there was a plural version, we might say they have surfed. So you're looking for either that has or have plus a past tense verb. That shows you we're using the present perfect tense. And after you've done that, there's not much more to worry about with the present perfect. We just need to make sure it works with the context of the sentence. Now, in this case, Jim has surfed since 1979. We've got an event that started in the past, started in 1979, presumably, and continues into the present. That seems to make sense. The context work, the tense makes sense with the context. We're going to be fine. That's about all there is to the present perfect. We're going to leave that to one side for now. It's going to come back later in the video. Now, the one where there is a little bit more work is the past perfect tense. Now, for now, in this case, I'm just going to show you how to identify it, and then we're going to come back in a second and look at how to decide whether it's being used right or wrong. So the past perfect tense indicates something, an event that started in the past and stopped at some other point in the past, so it does not continue into the present. Now, the way you can identify this tense is by the use of had followed by a past tense, another past tense verb. In this case, until 2015, Jim had been a runner. That had been is your indication that we're using the past perfect here. All right, like I said, there's a little bit more to the past perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this board cleared. We're going to come back in just one second. And we're going to look at what to do once you've identified that there is a past perfect verb in a sentence. So I'll see you back here in a couple of seconds where we'll look at dealing with the past perfect tense. All right, as I said, there's a couple of ways of dealing with the past perfect in GMAT sentence correction. So I've got a couple of examples behind me that we'll take a look at here to go into a little bit more depth on this tense. So first of all, 2 sentences here. In both of them, we've got that same verb in the past perfect that we had before. In both cases, Jim had been a runner. Now, so we've got the past perfect here. Now we need something else in order for this to work properly in the GMAT. As I said before, the past perfect indicates an action that started in the past and stopped at some other point also in the past. So we need something to stop this action. In this first sentence, I've got this, until 2015. So I've got this time marker. This time marker is going to stop the action of Jim being a runner. He had been a runner until 2015. Before 2015, he was a runner. We've got this action going on in the past, and then 2015 comes along, it stops, the action stops. We've got a similar thing in this second example. We've got he had been a runner, but this time I don't have a time marker. I've got a second verb, and this time it's in the simple past tense. And so, as before, he was a runner before he stopped. And that second verb in the simple past tense comes after the verb in the past perfect tense. We've got a bit of ordering here. In this case, two verbs. Past perfect comes first, simple past comes second. Now we'll just take a look at the rest of the sentence to make sure the context works. So he had been a runner, but he stopped after hurting his knee. Seems to make sense. He was a runner, he hurt his knee, that made him stop. The context works. We've got the technical side of thing that works as well. This sentence looks good, and both of these examples would work on GMAT sentence correction. All right, so that's how I would go about taking a look at past perfect when it appears in the sentence. And so what we'll do now is we'll go start putting official examples up on the screen for you to take a look at. I've got 3 examples for you today. Each time I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to work through them on your own before we come back together, put them on the board and work through them. All right, so I will get the first one up on the screen, and I'll see you back here in a couple of minutes' time. Okay, now's your chance to pause it if you need a little more time to work on this one. I'm going to take it away so that we can take a closer look at it together. All right, so we've got plenty of tenses going on in this video. I'm going to spend most of the time looking at those. There are potentially other things we could get into in this question, but as we'll see, we're not going to need them in this one. I'm going to start with B, just because we've spent the last couple of minutes looking at the past perfect, and I hope that when you were doing this question, the had begun and the had been started jumping off the page at you. I'm hoping you're starting to see these tenses in the question. All right, so take a look at B first. We've identified the past perfect. Looking through the rest of the sentence, the non-underlined portion, we do have another verb that the widely accepted Big Bang Theory holds. So we've got some present tense verb in there. I've got that the universe had begun, past perfect, in an explosive instant 10 to 20 billion years ago and had been expanding ever since. All right, so as we said earlier, past perfect, it starts in the past and I need something else to stop it. I need a time marker. I need a second verb in the simple past tense. These two actions need to start in the past and stop in the past. Now, in this case, if we look at the whole sentence, I've got two verbs in the past perfect, one in the present tense. I don't have anything to stop these things. I've got no marker that says that they're going to stop. Now, by itself, that's probably enough to get rid of B. Then we get into the reason you might use the past perfect, particularly if there's a second verb in the simple past tense, is we want to talk about ordering. I want to put these two things into order. Now, obviously, if you're looking at the sentence that the universe had to begin first before it started expanding, it can't expand before it's begun. But from the grammar alone, not the context, from the grammar alone, can we tell? We've got two verbs both in the past perfect, and there's no real context there to tell us which one came first. So again, we've got another problem here. Now, the final one, and we're going to use this in some of the other places here, we've got this ever since at the end. So this, in B, the universe had been expanding ever since. Now, ever since is the sort of thing you use when something starts in the past and continues into the present. To go back to the first example we had at the start of the video, Jim has been surfing since 1979. So again, it doesn't make sense to use the past perfect here, had been expanding ever since, because ever since says it's going to continue into the present, but had been suggests it's going to stop in the past at some point. We've got a bit of a contradiction there. So we've got the double past perfect in B, but that gives us a range of reasons that we can look at that would mean that we can cross B out and B's not going to be our answer. Right. Now, I'll just keep going alphabetically and take a look at C. We said ever since suggested something that started in the past and continued into the present. And thankfully, here at the end of C, I've got this has expanded. But let's take a look at what that's referring to so that the tense works. But as I said, just because it works, let's not get too mechanical here. Let's go looking at the context. That has expanded. We've got something that has expanded, and we should probably go and find out what that is. Now, in this sentence, the thing that has expanded was the explosive instant. It's an explosive instant 10 to 20 billion years ago that has expanded ever since. And if you think about the context of this sentence, it's not the explosive instant that it's expanded, it's the entire universe that's expanded. And so for that reason, C doesn't make sense with the context of the sentence. The tense works, but it's relating to something that doesn't make any sense. So we can cross C out. Now I'm going to stay looking at this part at the end of the sentence when we start looking at D. We've got is expanding ever since. Now, just on a tense issue alone, that's not great. We've got something in the sentence, not in the underlined portion, that suggests that we're probably going to be using the present perfect here. That is expand. I've just got present tense here. So just in terms of matching the tense to the context of the sentence, that doesn't work. But then if we look at, again, we've got that is expanding. We're back to the explosive instant is the thing that is expanding. And again, we're looking for the universe to be expanding, not the explosive instant. So D, just looking at this bit at the end, gives us a couple of reasons to cross it out. And so we'll get rid of D. All right, taking a look at E. Okay, now, again, let's deal with this bit at the end. Has been expanding ever since. We've got the past perfect back here. So tense-wise, yep, we're okay there. But C was okay for the tense-wise, and we got rid of it because that tense was being applied to the wrong noun. So let's just check what it could be referring to. I've got an and here. I'm going to check my parallelism and see what has been expanding. Now, in this case, it's most likely going to be the universe. Now, we can talk about whether the to have begun is going to be parallel to the has been, and we'll get to that in a second. But just dealing with this bit at the end, the universe has been expanding. We fixed that problem that we had in C and D. So for now, that's okay. Now, yes, we could talk about the parallelism, but again, tense video here. I want to talk about the tenses for now. Again, we've got this, have begun. Again, present perfect here. We've got something that started in the past, continues in the present, but this is still being applied to the universe. The universe to have begun in an explosive instant. In that explosive instant, that's a one-time event. The universe began in an explosive instant. It didn't have been, that explosive instant isn't continuing into the present. So we can talk about the parallelism in another video, maybe we would, but in this case, I'm going to cross E out purely on the basis that have begun doesn't work to describe the explosive instant that the universe began, one-time event many years ago. So on a tense issue, we can get rid of E. All right, we've crossed out B, C, D, and E. We've not even looked at A, so let's go back and just hope that that one's okay. First job, we were spending a lot of time looking at this bit at the end. And this one has been expanding ever since. So we've got the tense that we've been looking for. We've got an and. Let's check the parallelism. Yeah, same way, it's most likely it's going to be referring back to the universe. The universe has been expanding ever since, and we've got that bit at the end to work in the way that we've been looking to do so. Now, the other bit, the other tense that we've got here dealing with is the universe began. We've got the simple past tense. This explosive instant was a one-time event. It didn't continue on. It doesn't continue into the present. It's the simple past tense. The universe began in an explosive instant and has been expanding ever since. The tenses work, the context of the sentence works, and so A is going to be our answer for this one. All right. I'm going to get you onto the next question straight away. Now, this one, even more so than this question, there are a couple of other places you could go looking for eliminations. Because this is the tense video, I'd ask that you just look at the tense issues first. Once you've dealt with all of those, then go looking at the other things. All right, so I'll get this next question up on the screen. I'll give you a couple of minutes to take a look at it, and we'll see you back here soon. Okay, if you need a little more time on this one, now's your chance to pause the video before I take this question away and we look at it together. All right. This is another one where there are other things that we could talk about in this question. I'm going to deal with the tenses first, just because this is a tense video. It's also another question where it's worth spending some time thinking about the context of the question, the context of the original sentence, before we go and jump into all the answer choices. So I'm going to spend a bit of time looking at the original problem. As I said before, I'm hoping that these sorts of things are beginning to jump off the screen at you. We've got the past perfect in this one too. So we've got the people, they had seen the report from the medical examiner, and the man who had attempted to escape from the state prison. And so we've got two verbs in the past perfect here. Now, unfortunately in English, or maybe fortunately, we don't have a tense for a verb for something that happened in the past before something else that happened in the past before something else that happened in the past. We can't string things along that much. We've only got the past perfect. Past perfect is, as I said earlier, an action that started in the past and stopped in the past by some other event, some other time marker. And so when you've got two verbs in the past perfect like this, they're going to be in some sort of order. That's why we're using this tense, and we've just got to use the context of the sentence to try and determine what the order is. So in this one, if you think about what's possibly gone on here, we've got a man who had attempted to escape from the state prison. He's somehow fallen into some river or been thrown into the river if this is some kind of nefarious action. Something's happened to him. He's probably died. He's been pulled out the river. Some medical report has gone on. The investigators had seen the report. And then the bid in the underlying portion is we're dealing with what happened after. So in terms of ordering these events, had attempted come first, had seen has come second, and we are looking at the third verb, and the verb in A is did. That's going to be the third action in line. Now, again, we've been talking about this for a little while now. When we're using the past perfect, we need something else in the past to stop it, either a time marker, which we don't have in this example, or another verb in the simple past tense that's going to stop it. Now, in this case, we've got did. That's the simple past version of do. So in terms of the kind of the technical aspects, A is looking okay to begin with. Yeah, the investigators did not doubt whether the body recovered from the river was the man. And it's okay, I'm gonna leave A for now. I'm gonna deal with the tenses and the other things before we worry about whether or not A is right. All right, so as we said, past perfect twice in the original sentence. I need something that's going to stop this. Now, when we look in B, the verb here, have. Now, we've been talking about the present perfect in other examples, and this might look like an example of present perfect, but have no doubt. No doubt isn't the past tense of a verb. Have doubted would be in the present perfect, but have no doubt. This is just the present tense. And it doesn't make sense to use the present tense here because, as I said, two verbs in the past perfect, I need something else to stop them. The way this sentence is set out, this verb's going to be the only thing. So using the present tense here doesn't work, and we can cross B out. Now, C, this time slightly different. Again, had, and okay, I've got a not here, but had doubted. I've got the past perfect again. He had doubted something. We're using the past perfect, and now if we plug C into the sentence, I've got three verbs all in the past perfect. Again, we know what the order should be, but from the grammar, we're not getting it, and I've got nothing, I've got no time marker, I've got no simple past tense that's going to stop these actions occurring. I can't use all three verbs in the past perfect in this way, so for that reason, we're going to cross C out. D, very similar to B. I've got have here at the start. Again, no doubt is not a verb in the simple past tense. It's just I have no doubt. That's the present tense. For exactly the same reason as we did for B, I can't use the present tense in this context. And so D is going to go. Now, E is an answer choice that lots of people jump on. The moment they cross out C, they jump to E and they go, right, had. Oh, past perfect. Same reason as C. We've got three verbs, past perfect. Let's get rid of it. But as we said with B, as we said with D, no doubt is not a verb in the past tense. So it's not had doubted, which would be past perfect. It's just that these people had no doubt. These investigators had no doubt. That's the simple past tense. And for the same reason we kept A because of the use of did, the tenses work in E. I've got my past perfect tenses. I've got something in the simple past tense. This stops the events in the past perfect. It gives us the context. It gives us the timeline. In a tense issue, E's looking good. And so now we're down to A versus E. Now, when you're considering these two, we've been talking about this bit at the end. A tells us that the investigators did not doubt whether the body recovered from the river was the man, whereas E tells us that the investigators had no doubt that the body recovered from the river was that of the man. Now, I'm not going to get into too much detail on this because this very issue we dealt with in the demonstrative pronoun video. What I could say is that it makes more sense, as we got here, we've got that of. That's a pronoun. We would replace the that of with the body of the man. And it makes more sense to say that the body recovered from the river was the body of the man than it does to say that the body recovered from the river was the man. You've got to be very literal with meaning when you get into a GMAT question. But in this case, E is going to be a better option than A. And so we can take E as our answer and cross A out. Yet if you want more detail on that one, we go into a lot more detail almost on this question. We'd use a stripped down version of this question, the demonstrative pronouns video. So if you want more clarity on that final bit about how we got rid of A and kept E, then go and take a look at that video. For this one, I'm focusing on the tenses, and on that issue, we can get rid of B, C, and D. All right, I've got one more example for you, which we'll get up on the screen in a second. Again, this one, there are other issues in this next question aside from the tenses. Because you're watching a tenses video, please focus on that first, and then we'll get into something else if we need to. All right, you got a couple of minutes for this last one. Good luck. I'll see you back here very soon. Okay, for the final time today, if you need a little more time to work on this one, feel free to pause the video now. But I'm going to take this one away so that we can take a look at it together. All right, now before we jump into this one, there are other issues other than tenses. You've probably seen them. They're fairly obvious here, and we will get into them before the end of this question. But as I said before, this is the tenses video. I want to talk about tenses to begin with. So for that reason, I'm going to start with A to begin with. All right. We said throughout the video, if you spot a had and then a past tense verb, then we've got the past perfect. Well, straight away up in A, had been. So the company reporting that one of its many problems had been the recent extended sales slumps. As we said throughout, we've got a verb in the past perfect. We need something that stops it. We need a time marker or we need a second verb in the simple past tense. In this case, I've got this, said. Said is a verb, simple past tense. He said, she said, they said. In the past, they said this would happen. And so we have a simple past tense verb that will stop the past perfect verb. Now, the next bit, let's just check the context of this and make sure it makes sense. So the company said it would start a 3-month liquidation sale in all of its stores, and that comes after the company was reporting that one of its many problems had been the recently extended sales slump. So there had been a sales slump, and then the company comes along and said it would start a 3-month liquidation sale. In that case, the tense seems to work, the order seems to work. It's like, but yeah, the tenses are okay here. So I'm going to leave A for now. Again, we might come back to it later, but for now, when we're just dealing with tenses, seems okay to begin with. Now, the second one, okay, tenses issues first. We've got has been. So has or have if it was plural, but has been. Yeah, we've got the present perfect here. So now we've got a bit of a change in tense. We've got to just check, does that make sense? So the company said in the past that one of its many problems has been the recently extended sales slump. Now, this is one of those cases where I can't really just jump out and say this is wrong immediately, as we've done earlier in the video, but I can say that this makes me a little uncomfortable. I mean, I know that I said my sister has been a nightmare. Yeah, you can say that sort of thing, but I'd probably put that in quotation marks. You'd be like, yeah, the ordering kind of makes sense, but would the GMAT use that? And is that better than the very clear uses of past perfect that we've had before. With the tense issue alone, I'm putting B in the sort of the I don't really like it bucket. A is doing a slightly better job. If I can find something else in B that's, again, maybe not jump off the page wrong, but if I can find something else in B that isn't good, then maybe I've built enough of a case that I can cross B out and A is going to be my answer here. And thankfully, we've got this bit at the end, this recently. All right. Again, comparing this to A, we had recent. So in a recent extended sales slump, recent and extended are both adjectives that modify the slump. The slump was recent, but it was quite long. It was extended. All right. Changing that to recently, as we've got in B, changes the meaning slightly. Now we go from a sales slump that was long and in the relatively near past to a sales slump that has in the relatively near past been extended, been lengthened. And if you think about what this sentence is trying to say, it's not saying that. We're not saying that this sales slump was recently extended. We're just saying that it happened relatively close in the past and it was quite long. The company's struggling a bit. So in this case, looking at B, I've got a couple of things in B that I'm going, okay, if A wasn't around, I could close my eyes, hold my nose and go for B. But because I've got A, because B does a couple of things I really don't like and A fixes both of them, I can be confident enough that I can cross B out, and B's not going to be our answer. All right, C is going to do a very similar thing. This time, we're going for the present tense here. So again, the company said in the past that one of its many problems is the extended sales slump. And again, you can make that work. So you can think of an example where I said that something is happening, but you'd probably put that in a direct quotation. In this case, it's just the company said in the past that something is their biggest problem. It's like, yeah, is the ordering working there? And for a similar reason to B, because I've got A, because the past perfect makes the ordering much more clear. I've got my timeline, it works perfectly. We're in a similar position than we were with the tenses in B going, I don't really like this. A is doing a better job already. Then if you add that in, we've got the same issue with the recently at the end of C. So in a similar way to B, I've built my case against C. I can't just on its own just go, this is wrong. But because there's definitely a couple of issues there and A fixes both of them and A is more clear and it does the timeline better and recent is better than recently, for that reason, I can get rid of C. All right. So yeah, moving on to D, I've got the same tense issue that we had with C. Now, again, by itself, maybe not enough to just cross this out immediately, but when we get down to D and E, we've got a bit of a bigger issue here. We've got a there here, the company and their biggest problems. We've got a subject-verb issue. So if the tense issue isn't enough for you in D, I've got a definite issue at the end here, at the start here with the there, and that can get rid of D. E, I mean, yes, we've got the same subject-verb issue. We know we're going to cross it out. Just dealing with the tenses very quickly. Had been. Again, same as A. The past perfect's okay here. We've got our ordering. We know how this sentence is going to work. But because of the subject-verb issue in E, we're going to get rid of that, which leaves us with A. Yeah, the company, one of its reporting that one of its many problems had been the recent extended sales slump. The company said it would start a 3-month liquidation sale. So there's going to be questions like this in sentence correction where you can't, or maybe you can't look at an answer choice, in this case, B or C, and immediately just go, that is definitely wrong. But you can begin to build a case against it. And you can go, okay, the tenses, you could make them work, but they're making me a bit uncomfortable. And I've got another option that does the job better. And then, as we said, recently is not doing the job that we want it to do. Recent does a better job of answering it. Yeah, I've got 2 problems with B and C. All my thinking is pointing me towards A. I'm going to choose A over B and C, and A is going to be your answer here. All right. I hope that's helped. We've looked at 3 of the main tenses you should look at today. Again, there's ways of doing it, but keep in mind the context of the sentence. Don't switch your human brain off. You've got to think, does this work logically? Does this work in the context of the sentence? I hope that's helped, and we hope to see you back here again soon for some of the other GMAT sentence correction videos. Thanks very much, everybody. See you next time.